So yeah, just to let everyone know that the session's being recorded, we'll be able to share a link for people who haven't made it today, but also if you are attending now, we'll share the link for you to watch anything back that you might like to. So yeah, thank you everyone for joining. I know that probably most people will stay kind of off video and on mute, which is absolutely fine. So just to introduce myself, so I'm Sarah. I'm the fair manager for Collect. I've worked on the fair for this will be the fifth year, I think. And then joining me today is Caroline Jackman. So Caroline, I'll let you introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Caroline Jackman. I'm a business consultant and coach for the creative industries and been working with the Collect Art Fair since 2017.
Great, thank you. And we also have Chris Turrell, who's joining us today. He was a participant in this year's Collect Open, so for 2025's fair. I'm not sure if he's actually, Chris, pipe up if you are here. But Chris is kindly joining us today as a former participant to kind of give you an insight as to his perspective on applying for and the run up to the fair and being at the fair and kind of everything that he experienced in that process. So yeah, you will also hear from Chris during this session. So that's just an introduction about us. I just wanted to do a few kind of housekeeping, I suppose. So if the session stops, it shouldn't, but please use the same link if for some reason we have technical issues. But the same link will get you back into the chat if you have any problems with that. As I've already said, it's being recorded, so just to make you aware of that. So how this session will run is that we obviously want to welcome you to ask questions about the Collect Open programme. So we've got a little bit of an agenda for the day. So you'll hear from Caroline, you'll hear from myself, and you'll hear from Chris. If you think of questions that you'd like to ask during those parts of the session, then please just pop them in the chat and we will answer them either towards the end of the session or if we can as we're going. But there's a half an hour kind of section at the end to kind of ask any questions and for us to have a chat. So you don't have to write them all in the chat. You can ask them just by raising your hand. And then yeah, that will be kind of the more Q&A part of the session. And if you have written your question in the chat earlier on, then we'll go through it and we'll read it out loud so that you know what the answer is. So yeah, that's just a note on that. So yeah, just a reminder that this session is for prospective applicants for Collect Open. So you might not have heard of the fair before. You might be familiar with Collect, or give you a little bit of an overview of what the fair is all about in a sec. But yeah, so we're here today to kind of help you kind of decide if the Collect Open program is the right kind of direction for you, if you'd like to make an application. If you're already kind of firmly decided, yeah, this is absolutely for me, I want to make my application, and you want a bit more advice of how to make a successful application, that's also what we'll go through today. So we hopefully it's a really useful chance for you to kind of just have a bit more of an insight and a chance to speak to us about anything that you're not clear on. So yeah, that's what the session is about. We have got quite a thorough, we hope, application guidance document, which hopefully it looks like this. There's a digital version online. So yellow document. So there's quite a lot in that. So hopefully you've had a chance to look through that. But if not, I do recommend giving that a read, especially if you have decided, yeah, I'm going to apply, because there's lots of useful information in there. We will touch on elements of that information during the session, but it is quite comprehensive. And yeah, as I say, if we'll have a chance for you to ask questions. If for some reason your question we can't answer straight away in this session, we'll follow up with you afterwards. We'll probably just ask for your email address and then we can pick it up with you after the session. But hopefully we'll be able to answer your question straight away is our aim. But if it's a bit more complex, then we can pick it up with you afterwards. But we will endeavour to be of help regardless. And I'm just going to put the agenda in the chat, actually. I'm just going to stop sharing so I can grab it from the, yeah, here we go. So I'll just put it in the chat here. Great. Um, so I'll carry on letting people in. I think there's quite a lot of us here already, which is great. I'll just share my screen again. Sorry, there's only so many buttons on Zoom. You would have thought I'd got used to it by now. Great. So as I say, welcome and thank you for joining us. I've just popped this agenda in the chat so you can kind of have a note of it if there's a specific part that you want to kind of know when's coming up. So yeah, I was just going to start with, we've done introductions. Hopefully Chris is joined as well, but you'll hear from him later anyway. So yeah, and welcome to Collect. So as I say, we're not kind of expecting everyone might not have been aware of Collect before. So just to give you a bit of an overview and a background. So Collect's the leading international art fair for contemporary craft and design. We showcase specialist galleries from across the globe. So we have a lot of international exhibitors within the fair. Primarily, the fair showcases exhibiting galleries, so there's often around 40 that take part. And Collect Open is a program that runs alongside the gallery presentations, and it's an opportunity for individual artists who aren't gallery represented at the fair to do a new and special project that's furthering their kind of work from their existing or current practice. So yeah, it's a really special opportunity, showcase, and the projects that are selected sit alongside kind of, yeah, world-class kind of artists and exhibitors. So it's a really great opportunity. So the fair's been running for, this will be the 22nd year in 2026. So it actually started off at the Victoria and Albert Museum in London back in 2004, I think is the right year. So yeah, 22 years ago, it was there for 5 years, and then it moved to the Saatchi Gallery. It's always been in London. So it was there for 10 years and then it's moved to Somerset House in 2020. So Somerset House is its current home. It offers kind of a beautiful kind of context for displaying craft in particular. It's got a lot of daylight with the kind of natural light coming through the windows. It does offer some complexities because it's a grade 1 listed building, but it's got some really stunning features, and it's a really great kind of space to be able to showcase work in a bit of a different way to what you might have seen in other kind of traditional art fairs where often they're kind of white cube type environments. So yeah, it's quite unique and special in that respect. And yeah, we attract kind of like a really large audience each year. And it's essentially it's a selling fair. So it's Collectors kind of the aim is to provide a marketplace for crafts. So we get a lot of people, we get actually museum patrons and buyers and collections come and acquire work each year from Collect. So they kind of come shopping at the fair, which is great. So yeah, everything at the fair is kind of on sale and is to buy. So it's very much a selling fair rather than an exhibition. Um, so hopefully that's a good kind of overview of what the fair is for. And then I might just, unless there's anything else, Caroline, that I might have forgotten. I've already done our introductions, but just a reminder, that's the three of us that are hosting today. And then I'll hand over to Caroline to go through. Oh, yeah, I think for some reason the Zoom link says it's going to expire, which it shouldn't do. So I'm not really sure if it does cut out. If everyone's got the link just to join, it should be fine to join back in. Sorry, apologies for that. I'll try and troubleshoot that in the background. But for now, I will hand over to Caroline, who can talk you through the application. Kind of, are you ready?
Thank you so much, Sarah. And I have a sneaky suspicion we are going to cut out, but don't worry. If something crops up that you need me to repeat, that's absolutely fine. Just put anything in the chat. So this particular opportunity, for those of you unfamiliar with the Collect Art Fair, I'm all about are you ready for this opportunity? Because we are placing you on an international stage for a fair that has been really well established, first with the V&A, then the Saatchi Gallery, now at its home at Somerset House. And with that strong reputation of over 20 years, we have international buyers, as well as museums and collectors and interior designers coming, and they are there to have serious conversations about acquisitions, commissioning, and also bigger projects. So it is that whole conversation. Are you ready to take this on board? And with the Collect Open proposition, we are asking artists to really think about where your practice is now, where you want to take it to. So what can the Collect Art Fair offer you through that international presence? It's a step change in your practice to sort of take you to the next level. And what does that step change look like to you? For argument's sake, you may have been a textile designer working with studios, working with products, but you want to shift that practice into doing something more fine art based or installation based or commission based. So it's a big step change for you. And you see the Collect Art Fair could offer you that launch pad to enable that step change. With that comes ambition. So we want to see that in people's applications, their propositions. With this step change comes ambition. I want Collect Open to offer me this. It can enable this. So I'm going to be ambitious with my proposal. I'm going to, as I said, go down the route of an installation. So that might be around scale or something you haven't tried before, a new medium that you haven't quite tried before, that you're integrating within your current practice. And with that may come innovation, with that trial of a particular medium or a particular technique, whether you're using digital technology. For example, last year, one of our Collect Open participants really embraced AI technology within their ceramic practice, and that really shifted their work for them. And it was really ambitious. They learned a lot, but really innovated with using new ways of technology. It might be around collaboration, working with another maker to sort of enable you to think differently about your practice. You may want to introduce wood into your practice that you never tried before, and working with a wood turner. So what does that collaboration look like? And is that a step change in your practice that leads you to the next level? So I repeat the word step change quite a lot because it's taking you to the next step of your practice. Now, are you ready around investment? This is a big investment for people, both time and financially. Time to enable you to have the space to develop your creative ideas, to develop partnerships or collaborations, or also time to build up a funding plan to enable you to afford to take part in Collect, because it's the stand fee to be a part of it, but it's also the time out to make. It is the marketing materials to promote your work leading up and during the fair.
So record. Great. Still some people joining. Yeah, for the latecomers, sorry, I can only apologise. Our Zoom account seems to be playing up and it thinks we're on a free plan, which we're not. But either way, I appreciate you all joining again, and we'll just give everyone a couple seconds and then we will reconvene. Great, I think that's probably most people. So great. So Caroline, I'll hand back over and I'll keep admitting people. I'll just share the presentation again as well.
Thanks, Sarah, and thank you everyone for your patience. The wonder of technology when want it to work. So I was talking about investment, the types of things that you'll be investing in. That is around uh, obviously the time commitment to create the work, the materials, the partnerships, but also your marketing, the stand display, your time and accommodation when you're actually at the fair. Those are the sorts of things when we talk around investment. And with that comes commitment, inevitably. So are you ready to commit to the time to produce the work, as well as the fair itself taking place in February? And we're going to hear from Chris later, who's going to talk all about his commitment and investment in the Collect Open opportunity and what it's done for him. So next slide, please, Sarah. Thank you. And obviously we are asking for an application, and I want you to really think about your application. And because assume that we do not know anything about your practice, and think to ask yourself questions of what is your idea? Is this around your step change? Is it going to take you to the next stage of your creative practice? And with that kind of like opening sentence, have you said exactly what you want to do? I am going to do this. This is why. This is what I'm going to achieve. What are your longer term goals with that project that you're presenting to us? Why does it matter? And this is a lovely image here of Darren Apilegi's project that he brought to the Collect Open presentation earlier this year. And it was a very personal story that he did, but he wanted to develop a particular technique within his woodwork, and he identified this personal story could really deliver this for him. So it was a really concise, cohesive idea and contextualized in how he was going to deliver the project, but also why it really mattered to him longer term with regards to his practice. What do you really need to have in place? Is it ambitious? Is it really going to push your practice? Is it going to give you stretch so you can really show people what your capabilities are? Do you have good visuals of your past work so you can really demonstrate your quality of making as well as your particular style and technique that you bring to your creative practice, as well as a visual of your project idea? And we will get onto this in a bit, but it could be a drawing or a digital drawing. Do you have a funding plan? And what's really important about that, if it's a grant orientated funding plan, meaning you need an injection of money into this whole idea, what is your plan B if that's not successful? So what is your funding plan altogether? Your marketing plan, we want to see that you've really thought about how you're going to promote you and your work leading up to the fair, during the fair, and afterwards. What does it mean for you afterwards? And then finally, how you're going to all make it work within your budget. Okay, next slide, please, sir. So this is a lovely sketch that was presented by one of our Collect Open makers in 2022. And this is somebody that had visited the fair before and sort of took on board the domestic setting of Somerset House. If you haven't visited before, don't worry about it. That's not a high priority here. But what we want you to think about is how your work will be within a space. And so that could be giving us a visual, simple sketch of, is it going to be wall-based? Is it going to be floor-based? Is it going to be on plinths or directly on the floor? Is it going to be suspended? How can you suspend something? Have you thought about the weight of that and those sorts of things? So really think about a sketch that can visualize your idea and show the selectors how you want people to navigate and what it potentially will look like. This is really important. because it's going to really support your written work. Or also, we do offer you the chance to video your application so you can speak your application rather than having to write it. With regards to good visuals, as I've already said, images of previous work is really going to help. And on that, I really want you to think about the context. So if you've got a couple of styles that you've established within your practice, what is the particular style that's going to demonstrate the context of what you're bringing to Collect Open with this new work, this new project, this new ambition? Really show the materials that you use and the type of scale that you currently do. And with that stand plan, we also want you to give an idea of scale. So if you are going to do something that is as life size, what does life size mean to you? Is that a meter? Is that 2 meters? Is it breadth and depth? To give an idea, it's just ideas at the time. So we appreciate that nothing is finalized, but we want your ideas down on paper so we can really understand what you're trying to achieve with this project that you would like to bring to Collect Open. Sarah, next slide, please. Marketing plan. Obviously, the deadline is February 2026, so you've got a wonderful deadline to work backwards from. Now, if you want to create, for example, a video to present at the Collect Art Fair, all about your practice, to show to collectors, museums, to interior designers, then it's going to take some time to think about, actually, how much is that going to cost me? Who are videographers that might be able to do that for me? And writing a brief, when is the best time to video that work? And so you create a sort of timeline of what you want to do, slotting in when you need to make it happen and all the variables that are within that. Another example might be that you don't have a current website and you want to have a website ready for the Collect Art Fair. Well, then you need good images for that. You need to decide on what is the system you want to use to create your website. And then if you need the good images, do you need professional images? So therefore, do you need to commission a photographer? And do you need funding for that particular funding? So then it's then working backwards of when can you get the money? When can you commission that photographer? When can you take those images? When can you get it online? Working backwards. Also within your marketing plan, that's sort of practical advice about working backwards. But for what we would also like to see is who is your target audience, and thinking around specificity here. If you really want to get noticed by museums, say that and why that's important to you. If it's around interior designers, say that, and again, contextualize why that's important to you. And it really will help you plan for the future and getting into good practice, if you don't do this already, about a marketing plan. Likewise, if you're putting together a funding application, whether that's to Arts Council for a project grant or a Developing Your Creative Practice grant or any other trust and foundation, they would also like to see a marketing plan. So this is really going to help you that you can draw things out of the Collect Open marketing plan you can put into funding applications. Likewise, planning the visuals and video content and getting proficient with that for social media and creating an up-to-date website, all those sorts of things that you might naturally do already, but putting it into a plan so that others can see it and see, oh, they've really thought about this. And then that will really help you go forward with this particular project, but also any other project that might come up as a result or any other opportunity that comes up for you. Next slide, please. So yeah, funding plan. What are your options? And it's really important to think about a plan B. So if you're looking at grants, what are the wider options out there available? And if you're not really sure, ask around, ask other artists that have taken part in Collect Open or bigger projects, where have you sought your funding from? And thinking about where are your own resources because it's not just grant funding that's available to you. We've had Collect Open makers that have had successful crowdfunding campaigns, and through Kickstarter or Crowdfunder, or even just their own networks reaching out to people. And that is a reward-based system. If you want to know more about Crowdfunder, I'm really happy to, or the whole concept of crowdfunding, pop it in the chat. I'm really happy to talk about that in more detail. But thinking about your funding plan and thinking about that funding plan now, and it's really going to serve you well for other future opportunities. And also, particular your lead-in time. What do you need in advance? So the lead-in time, if there's a deadline, say in a week, do you actually have time to complete an application? To what do you need in advance to give the funders the best excuse to say, yes, I want to fund this project. This is exactly what we're about. And so finding the right option for you, because it's around alignment. And funders do not just say, yes, I want to fund everything. It's all around eligibility and criteria. What is relevant to their core values and their purpose as a funder? Like I say, what is your plan B? Can you look into your own savings? Can you reach out to friends and family? Can you generate sales that can specifically support your Collect Open project, your Collect Open commitment? And that is why it's so super important if you're reliant on any sort of funding, that you've got a plan B in place. So all the effort that you're going to is enabled because you've got this plan B in place. Next one. So thank you, Kerry. I'll talk about crowdfunding shortly. So thinking about writing an application, when you're putting together a proposal, you really want to think about your aims and objectives. What do you want to achieve as a result of completing this application? So a lot of this is around what you'd be doing already for the Collect Open proposal, but it's also relevance. So the criteria. We don't want to sort of encourage you to apply for things if it's very much about a round peg and square hole. So it's need that kind of alignment. So what are you trying to aim to do, and how are you going to achieve that with those aims and objectives? And having those clearly stated, these are my aims, these are my objectives. Most people put together 3 aims and 3 objectives. What am I going to aim to do? How am I going to achieve it? Then your project proposal, make sure that first sentence says, this is what I'm going to do and when. Rather than describing how you're going to do it, say what you're going to do. That's really important. So you capture people's imagination and attention straight away with that opening sentence. And what's really important with that proposal is making sure that it is smart. You may have heard of that term before. So I'm going to say it or spell it for those that don't know the SMART objectives, which is specific. Is it specific? Is it measurable? Is it achievable? Is it realistic? And is it time bound? And that's showing people you've really thought about the specificity linked to their funding offer, to your practice, and if it requires a wider public benefit to that as well. You've really thought about how you're going to achieve it, and that it's realistic for you to be able to achieve. You know, you still want the stretch, definitely, but you've really thought about how you're going to achieve it. And that might mean you bring in a mentor or another expert and things like that to show that you've really thought about this. And then thinking about the time, obviously it's, you know, when the Collect Art Fair is going to be in February, but have you thought about that slot of time? You get the funding, for example, the funding might not come through till October. Do you have enough time to complete your objectives and demonstrated that? These are the sorts of things that you can bring into your project proposal to show people how you're going to do it. And then the delivery of when you're going to make that happen. You can put in those specific things around, I'm going to, for argument's sake, take away 3 weeks, and it might involve a course, it might involve, as I said, a mentor, it might involve studio visits or exhibition visits or a little bit of research. What is the project delivery? And again, if it requires a partnership or collaboration, you've got that details in there. And especially around partnership or collaboration, that has already been agreed in advance. That's really, really good. And thinking about the timescales of that, when you're going to make those things happen, how you're going to market that. Talked a lot about marketing plan already. So bringing those ideas into what is your deadline, work backwards, what you need to have in place. And if there are any partners or collaborators or experts that you're bringing into your project, then having conversations in advance with them before submitting the application is a really, really good idea to have their endorsement, if anything. Making a real sure, clear budget. How are you going to make it happen? You've really thought about how you're going to pay yourself with that artistic time to create your actual work. The materials, again, is it realistic? Have you really thought about it? And try not to make things fit in too much. It's, it's sort of, if you can't, if, for example, you need 30 days, but you need to keep it under a certain budget, can you say to them, okay, I'm going to give some of my time in kind to this. So there is a cash value for that. So budgets are around what is the funding that you need. For argument's sake, say it's £5,000, and then you're going to put in additional time that has a value, a cash value of like £2,000 for argument's sake. And you might have a sponsor that could give you some materials, and that might have a value of £500. Your project budget then is £7,500, but the cash you're only asking from the funder is actually £5,000. So you're showing the whole budget. That's important. Audience engagement, if that's relevant. The reason why I've put this in here is if you're doing a project grant for Arts Council, that requires audience engagement. If you're doing a developing your creative practice grant for Arts Council, that doesn't, because that does exactly what it says on the tin. It's about developing your creative practice. It's not about the fair, it's purely about development of your creative practice. If you're doing a project grant for Arts Council, that is about the audience engagement. How are they going to connect with your work, your project? And ideally, not just about the fair, because obviously the fair is a paid opportunity. So thinking more broadly, give it breadth and depth, thinking about what is the criteria of the funder. Often funders require an evaluation. So with that, you need documentation. So how are you going to capture data? There are two strands of data. There's quantitative and there's qualitative. Quantitative is just the numbers, but qualitative is what is the feedback you can get from people? What does it mean? What's your project give back? Again, partners, collaborators, experts, that can feed into your data as well as the wider audience engagement. So that's really thinking about how you can put a project proposal together. And this applies for any type of project proposal, not just the funding ones. Really think about these types of ideas when you're putting something together. So that preparation, criteria, super important. What is required within the criteria of this opportunity that's in front of you? What do they expect in return? And it's all, I want to sort of talk about risk here. So any funder or residency organization, or in this case, Collect Art Fair, they want to have a return on investment. So they are taking a risk in investing in somebody else by either giving you money, giving you a residency, or giving this showcasing opportunity. So you've, by understanding their criteria, you're fulfilling that, saying, yes, okay, this particular grant is around audience engagement. I've really thought about that, how it's aligned. And you've really thought about the criteria linked to Collect Open, what we're looking for, or, other opportunities. So have you understood it? Are you in line with that? And with that comes guidelines of what are they actually asking me to fulfill? What is the deadline? What is the type of commitment that I'm being asked to do? What are the guidelines? How do I, in this option of funding, what are they asking me to complete? Again, because I'm referring quite a lot to Arts Council because many people go for that. They have a grantian portal. If you're not familiar about that, that is basically where you register online with Arts Council through their funding portal called Grantian. So you need to submit your name, your email, and create a password. And then that takes like a week or so to get approval. So it's important that you sign up to that. Those are sorts of things to think about. What are the guidelines? And registering. Is there a relationship manager? That sometimes there might be a person of contact that you can reach out to learn more about. So really thinking about that relationship. Can you have a conversation or either an email with that person? It's sort of few and far between, but looking at the trusts and foundations here, rather than just Arts Council, thinking about the relationship form or have a bit of context about the opportunity in front of you. And I've already talked about, is it realistic? Is it realistic if you've got applying for a trust and they might only have an application open once a year and you've only, if you get it, then you've only got 1 month to produce the work. Is that realistic? You going for that? Thinking about your time, not just their time. And thinking about achievable. So it's really about that competitive application and you put in the effort because nobody's going to give you free money without really understanding you and your practice. It's so competitive out there. With that competitivity, really think about match funding. I've talked a little bit about cash value, cash in kind, and that is a way of creating match funding. So wherever possible, if you're asking for a grant, then what can you match it with that has monetary value? Really thinking about that. That will really help you have a competitive application. And this might be also linked to a partnership. For example, if somebody's giving you free space to do a video or do a workshop or even do a soft launch presentation or whatever it is, that has monetary value to it. And that gives you match funding, as well as that endorsement from that partnership. Is it targeted? Are you being specific? And I've talked a little bit about partnerships, and partnerships just really can help you really give you your project credibility when you're applying. And finally, when preparing, what is the evidence that you need that you can put together? And, this could be a document check again within the guidelines. If you can submit a supporting document, what is the file size with that? So not sort of bombarding it with loads of images or reducing the image sizes. So really keeping it relevant to give some supporting evidence that can support your application. Okay, next slide. Okay, I know, Sarah, you're gonna jump in there, so I'm just gonna briefly talk about crowdfunding. There are many platforms for crowdfunding. Kickstarter and Crowdfunder are a popular one. Kickstarter is known for crafts, so it's quite a useful one, but it's based on a reward-based system, meaning if you say, okay, if you fund in my campaign and give me 60 quid, I will give you a workshop. Or if you give me £500, I will give you an original piece of work. If you give me £5, that is just a thank you and a contribution to my campaign. You do need to create a video. They are all based on that kind of whole marketing concept of presenting your idea to the platform of Kickstarter to people saying, this is what I want to achieve. For example, if you, I'm thinking of somebody who did a campaign on crowdfunder to get a new kiln. So they demonstrated saying, this is the work that I do to enable me to scale up my business. I need a new kiln. I'm going to do a dinner service, and people can buy into that dinner service. I'm going to offer a couple of talks and a few mugs. And they created this reward-based system to get this kiln. With reward-based systems, you then have to do the work afterwards. So in the scenario, this particular maker successfully raised enough money to buy their kiln, but then they had to create this dinner service for people that had given them the money. So really think about that. But if you are doing a crowdfunding campaign, as long as you're super clear to people of when you're going to do that rewards, for example, if you say in April 2026, I'll be running my workshops, or in April 2026, I'll be offering the products that you've supported in this campaign. You're showing people and managing their expectations. That is important. Also, it's important you have a mailing list, because whilst these platforms offer you literally the platform to promote you and manage your crowdfunding campaign, you will get, or you're more likely to successfully achieve your funding goal if you have a mailing list to speak to. So if you don't have a mailing list, I would be a bit cautious about using a crowdfunding campaign. But if you already have one, great. So really think about how you can build up a mailing list. If you haven't got one already, do think about how you can build up a mailing list, because crowdfunding is a really brilliant opportunity of raising money and cultivating ways to sort of build up your platform, your profile, as well as raising funds. And lots of different projects have come out of it. People have produced their own books out of crowdfunding campaigns. They've launched a new product. They've done installations. They've even paid for a course through crowdfunding campaigns. So really think about relevance. But it's worth looking at Kickstarter and crowdfunder and things like that. And also the Crafts Council website do have some information on crowdfunding campaigns worth having a look at. Over to you, Sarah. Hopefully I've answered those questions, but we'll get to a Q&A a bit later if anything's unclear there.
Great, thank you, Caroline. Unfortunately, I've just got another notification saying that the Zoom link is going to expire again in 10 minutes. So all I can do is apologise. I have been trying to troubleshoot in the background, but unfortunately, I think it's probably best that we keep to the same link and just rejoining it, just in the case that, because this is the one that's been distributed, rather than trying to move to a different link. So yeah, apologies for the inconvenience, but yeah, hopefully it will still be a useful session despite the extra admin involved. Sorry, I was just writing a answer to some of the questions in the chat, but I'll focus on the presentation because we will be getting to all of your questions afterwards. All very good questions as well. So great. So I'm just going to share my screen again, and this time we'll be showing the application form, and I'm just going to kind of walk you through each of the sections on it and just give an overview of each of the sections and just kind of break it down. So hopefully everyone can see that okay. So this is the page that you'll appear when you click on the application link, which you can find in various places on our website. Apologies that it's a bit confusing because it says that the deadline is next year after the fair, which it's not. So I've put the deadline, the actual deadline is Sunday, the 22nd of June. The reason I can't change the one that appears on the right. We keep the actual portal open for people who are participating in the fair. So if you are successful, you'll get really used for this platform because it's where we ask people to make their initial applications. But if you're successful, we carry on using this as a way of asking you to fill out kind of other forms that we need information for in the run-up of the fair, and we share some kind of assets with you there as well. So it's kind of like a centralized hub, basically, of all the information that you need to take part. So that's why the deadline is set to afterwards, but it's actually 22nd of June is when we need your applications by. So it's a bit of an overview here, and you can find links to the application guidance and the terms and conditions. So application guidance looks like this, if you've not seen it already. There's quite a lot within there. So as I say, I would recommend giving that a full look over when you've got a chance. Some of the stuff that's within it we'll kind of be talking about today, but in general it's quite comprehensive. So hopefully you find that really useful. It's links to throughout the kind of forms as well. So I'll just jump on to the actual application. So if you've applied for Collect Open before, you might see your previous applications. If you've applied, so the actual platform is called SurveyMonkey Apply. So other organisations might use it. So you might find that you've got other applications for stuff that you've done in the past. So your page might look different depending on that. But essentially, obviously, the one that you want is the Collect Open 2026. So you've got a list of all the forms to complete. The first one that we'll open with is the key information. So again, it's just kind of reiterating the deadline. We've got information about this session, which we can put the link to the recording there instead after this has taken place. So yeah, if you want to look back and find the application guidance and T's and C's again, you can find it in the key information page. So there's nothing to actually complete here. That's just kind of like where you can find those bits. Personal details, all kind of self-explanatory really, but if you're in a collaborative, then we do ask for kind of like a lead contact. So you'll kind of decide between the two of you which is the main contact and which is the secondary. So yeah, we do on occasion get people applying together as a collab. And just to kind of, while we're on that, just to iterate, so that is very much, it needs to be a cohesive project. So it's not two artists presenting their works together in the same space. It's very much a collaboration of a new project that both of you are working on together. So that is kind of listed in the criteria, but just to kind of explain that as well, that's how that can work. So yeah, very much needs to be something that's been worked on together. We do ask for your trading name, so yeah, that might just be your first name and second name, and that's just so that we understand kind of how to credit you. So when we're kind of referring to you in the press release or kind of marketing or the signage that we produce at the fair, we're just getting your name consistent. So you might have like a different name that you use for your business, or you might just use your personal name. Most of the time, people just use their actual, their first name, second name. But that's just for you to kind of put in there so that we're clear on that. So business address, that can obviously, you might not have a separate address for your business. That could very much be your home address, and that's absolutely fine. That's the address that we'll use for if you're successful, your contract and everything will kind of be addressed to there. So email address, mobile number, website, Instagram, all quite self-explanatory. So these are really useful for well, just general marketing and just for us to kind of have wider context of your work. Discipline, we have standardized. I appreciate that not everyone fits into a category, but it is a helpful exercise for us to be able to kind of have an overview of roughly where people are fitting within the fair, and also for the purposes of kind of cataloguing artist indexes and things like that when it comes to producing materials and content for the fair. So yeah, hopefully most disciplines you'll find find there. But nationality and the location that you're based, just kind of useful, interesting information for us to have, just to give like an overview of the fair. And as we say, we are international, so we do hope to have kind of like a broad kind of overview of people from different places. So it's just interesting for us to know that. And there might be different places that you heard about the Collect Open opportunity. We've listed a few places here, which there's been some networking and things that we've done as part of the outreach to share the opportunities. So it's just useful for us to know if you heard about it through one of the people that we were working with. And if you'd like to subscribe to our newsletter, you might well have heard about the opportunity from our newsletter. So you might be already subscribed, but if you want to, please tick there. So that's the personal details section. And I'll explain what happens to your application after you submit it, but none of that element gets shared with the panel. I'll explain kind of what happens and which parts of your application get shared with them after I've gone through all the forms. So if you're familiar with Collect Open and have maybe applied before, you might notice this is a new element for this year. We've got the introduction of a bursary programme, which has been a Crafts Council initiative to kind of launch. There's 3 bursaries available. And there's lots of information about this. We've actually got like a specific section of the FAQs within the guidance around the bursaries. So they're open to UK-based makers only. And they're for people who are from global majority backgrounds and who are in need of financial support. So there's lots of information about the eligibility criteria on this page. So if you would like to be considered to receive a bursary, then please kind of confirm that you'd like to apply for it here. If you're not applying for it, you can just ignore the section completely and leave it blank. But if you are applying for the bursary alongside your application, then this is where you need to complete the form here. So it's just asking for, there's obviously a list of eligibility criteria. So it's just ticking which of those that you would meet and confirming that you'd like to apply for it. Okay, so that's that form. So your proposal. So this is where the bulk of your kind of information that you'll be preparing for your application will be submitted. So as Caroline mentioned, she's already given some great advice about what kind of thing to consider and to include. There's 2 different formats that you can submit this in. So if you'd like to submit a written or a video, that's up to you. So obviously with your written proposal, we do have a word cap of 500 words. And then for video, we've asked for it to be no longer than 3 minutes, just to allow kind of time for everyone's proposals to be reviewed by the panel. So yeah, essentially that's where you can submit these. So some advice like practical, sorry, we're about to get cut off, so I'm aware of that. So just a reminder to please click on the link again. Again, apologies. So yeah, just on a practical point of view, if you are obviously drafting a written application, I would suggest kind of drafting that offline. You can kind of save your progress. You can save and continue editing with this form, but just maybe draft it in a Word document, and then once you're happy, you can copy and paste it just in case something happens and you're typing it in and the internet connection goes, and yeah, that would not be ideal. And then here as well is where you can upload a STAM plan. So yeah, again, as you've kind of seen like an example, it doesn't need to be kind of anything particularly fancy or kind of like highly designed. It can literally just be a sketch on a piece of paper and you upload a photo of that. And as Caroline already spoke about this a little bit, it's just for us to have an understanding of where we would see your work being. There we go. There we go. Great. So yeah, I was just going over the stand plan, and yeah, it doesn't need to be a highly technical drawing. It's so that we have an understanding of kind of whether your project is kind of feasible. And also a lot of the time, if you are successful, we'll work with you on kind of resolving some kind of because like I say, with a grade 1 listed building, there are some limitations in terms of what we can do, especially when it involves kind of hanging from above. But there's always solutions. So often that just involves kind of like a conversation with the ops team to kind of be able to work out a way of kind of displaying things how you'd like. But yeah, the sketch is a really useful starting point for us to kind of see this is how you envisage it to look. And if you've got kind of as much information as you have really about like weights and things, I mean, very much, I'm sure they'll be approximate at this point. But it's all just a starting point. And then should you be successful, we'll kind of create a more kind of solid plan from there. But yeah, that's just a really nice way of also the panel being able to understand like how you think your project will look as well once it's finished. So it is a really useful thing for us to have. So that's that page. And then the next section is where you can submit the marketing and funding plans that Caroline was talking about. So again, it doesn't need to be kind of anything kind of complex. You don't need to do kind of like an extensive Excel spreadsheet or anything, just kind of like a few bullet points about what you were kind of had in mind in terms of what you'd like to do in terms of the marketing and the run up. It's just so that we can kind of see that you've had some thoughts around what you'd like to do and that you've kind of given it consideration. And the same with funding as well, just for us to know kind of what you're planning in terms of funding. And if you'd like to, you can submit kind of, if you've got it all on kind of like a document that you've been working off, you can upload that as an optional supporting document. Same with the funding plan. So yeah, hopefully that's all self-explanatory. And then the previous work section is where you can submit those very important images. So yeah, like Caroline says, like just kind of anticipate that people don't know your work at all. So the advisory panel are looking at your images as a way of understanding what your practice is and kind of what your what your work will look like. So yeah, obviously the project that you're submitting for Collect Open is well, I don't know if we've kind of discussed it at length, but it's in the eligibility criteria. So it's the project you're proposing should be for a new body of work made specifically for the fair. So we don't anticipate that you'll have photos of it. So what we ask for instead is kind of previous work that is indicative of the kind of work that you might be bringing or the kind of level of skill in your making, something that's really going to kind of give the panel an idea of what your practice is. So yeah, good, quite high quality images are really great for us to see. So you're able to submit 5. There is an Excel form that we ask you to submit, which is essentially a caption form. I don't know if that will let me share that actually because I'm on screen view. But yeah, if you download the form here, essentially it's asking for kind of the caption information so that if you've got the 5 images, you can then tell us kind of a bit more about each one. So like the dimensions, the materials that are in kind of each one. And please make sure that you kind of label the images with your name, so that we can see kind of keep them nice and organized and it's all really clear. So that's previous work section. And then we have, because we're kind of a national organisation, Crafts Council, so we have a bit of reporting that we need to do in terms of like who's taken part in our programme. So there's an equal ops form, which is asking some kind of equal opportunities based questions, it will take you to a separate link outside of the application form. So if you're able to submit that, that's great. It only takes a few minutes, and it's completely kind of separate from your actual application. And then the application fee. So there is a fee to apply for the programme. So that's a fee of £45. If you are needing a VAT receipt, we can issue those. It doesn't give you that automatically, unfortunately. But if you just get in touch with me, use the collect@ email address, and then we can get the finance team to issue you a VAT receipt for that. So bursary applicants are actually exempt from the fee. So if you're applying for a bursary, you don't need to pay for the fee. But otherwise, yeah. So I also wanted to talk about what happens to your application after you submit it. So there are quite a lot of questions in the form to fill out. So, but hopefully breaking it down is kind of helpful. So essentially, what we'll do is after the deadline, all of the applications will kind of get downloaded. And then we have an external panel who actually is the one who decides which proposals are successful. So each year there's about 12, between 10 and 14 projects that are selected for the fair. So we always have a panel each year and we change who's on the panel as well. So they are presented essentially with your proposal, whether it's in written or video format, the images of your past work and your stand plan. And we might also look at your kind of funding and marketing plans with them as well, but it's mostly those other 3 elements. So the presentation is got those elements from your application in it, but your names are removed, so they're anonymized essentially, so they're kind of numbered. And then yeah, that's essentially how it works. So we have a whole day where the panel spends looking through the applications, and then obviously, as you can imagine, it's often a very tough process. We get a lot very strong projects being presented. So it's up to the panel to kind of drill down on which ones will be successful. We have on a few years have kind of like a reserve list. of applicants. But regardless of whether your application is successful or not, we will get back to you by the end of July to let you know the outcome, essentially after the panel have had a chance to meet. So unfortunately, a lot of the time I've found that my emails end up in people's spam folders. So it looks like we've not got back to you. So apologies for that. If you can kind of keep an eye on your spam folders for that time, just in case my emails ended up there, because we do very much obviously appreciate the time that you've taken to submit the application. We have the full intention to get back to you with the outcome. We can sometimes provide like a little bit of feedback, but due to the volume, it's not always possible to kind of provide in-depth feedback on your application if you're not successful. But we will try to. We just can't promise it to everyone, but where we can, we obviously do want to be of help and a kind of something that's constructive for you to take forward. Um, so yeah, great, cool. Was there anything else I want to go through in that section? I don't think so. I think I can hand it over to Chris if you're ready, Chris. Who can, and I can jump back into the presentation. Oh, you're upside down, but we can see you.
How do I do that?
Well, you've made an improvement. Earlier, Chris
I
missed
wasn't
opportunity with this video, so I'm
told.
glad that we're able to see you. Not quite sure how you're upside down, but it's impressive.
Right.
And maybe it's mirrored somehow.
Right,
If
take
I
that
can
off.
change anything.
This is
I'll get the presentation up in the meantime because we've got some lovely images of Chris's work
That's
to
great.
share with everyone.
Oh dear. Okay. I'm sorry about that, everyone. I don't know why I'm upside down.
That's okay.
Is that all right? Shall I just get
I'm
started?
sure we can. I'm sure we can manage. It's been a tech challenging day, so
Oh,
as
okay.
long
Well,
as
sorry
people
about that,
don't
everyone.
mind bearing with us,
I am usually the right way around.
appreciate
Um, so my name's Chris Turrell. I'm a ceramicist, and I've been making work for quite a long time now, really. And so I've known about Collect for a while, and in the last few years, I would say in the last 5 or 6 years, I made a decision to really focus on my practice and to kind of really concentrate on, okay, I've been making now for a couple of decades now. This is the time really to think very carefully about where I want to go next. And I really, really wanted to get into um, a kind of the next step in my practice, and I felt that it was the right time to do that. I wasn't represented by any galleries apart from one in Liverpool. I'm based in Liverpool, and I'm only really represented by the Blue Coat Display Centre. And so the idea was to really show off my skills as a maker. Hopefully, if that doesn't sound too cocky, to get in contact with more galleries, to even look at potentially museum collections, to link up with curators that I've known about for a while. But especially being in Liverpool, it's difficult to somehow, to get to get to see the right people. They always tend to be in London, and I always say to I run a pottery studio as well, and I always say to my students, you need to be where the people are that you want to speak to. You need to go to them, and I think Collect just seemed to be that kind of opportunity to be at the right place at the right time with the Crafts Council's backing and support and network. It felt like that this was the right thing for me to do. I was ready for it. I kind of felt like I was ready for this next step. Uh, I was also a member of Design Nation, and I applied to show a piece of work through Design Nation at Collect last year. So I was very lucky to be able to do that. So I had a little bit of a taste of what the Collect Fair was like as an exhibitor. That was a really good kind of introduction to the fair as a participant, as opposed to a visitor. And so I got to know some of the things that you have to do as an exhibitor in terms of being very clear about what it is that you are exhibiting, in terms of the presentation, the story, the materials, the amount of work that needs to lead up to creating something for for Collect. And so that went well for me last year through Design Nation. And so then I decided, okay, well, let's step this up again and apply for Collect Open. And using some of the things that I learned from Collect through Design Nation, I put my proposal together. Now, my proposal was based on the idea of who would you invite to your ideal dinner party? Who are the heroes and people that have helped to influence you over the years? And it was a way of saying thank you to them. So the idea, the proposal was a very simple one, which I thought that a lot of people could relate to. They could understand the concept quite clearly. I think that was very important with my proposal, is that it was something that people could understand. Within a sentence, they could kind of understand, okay, this is you're inviting your ideal guests to your dinner party. We can understand that. We all have heroes. We all have people that have influenced us over the years. Um, it was a fairly kind of simple idea. Um, and so I took that as the core concept. It changed slightly after I got accepted. It changed slightly and evolved a little bit towards the actual piece that I showed at Collect Open this year. But essentially, the core idea stayed the same, but the presentation slightly changed a little bit as the kind of the actual making started to take place. I wanted to kind of say about funding, because I did apply for the National Lottery project funding twice and was unsuccessful, even though I got an expert to write my application for me, and obviously had to pay for that. She said that it was getting very tight. The grants situation is getting tighter and tighter. So, as Caroline said earlier in the meeting, you do need your plan B has to be, you have to really realize that you may have to rely on your plan B. I think funding is very tight at the moment. It's difficult to get. So I think be prepared for financing this yourself. The crowdfunder is a great idea. I met someone on Friday who did Collect Open the year before, and she did raise some money through crowdfunder. So that seems to be a good way to do it. It's a lot of work. You know, as Caroline said, you do have to produce work in order to give to people that have pledged money to you. I've done it with my studio in the past. It's it's a lot of work to do, and but you do hopefully you'll raise some money to go ahead with it. Um, but I think as soon as you found out if you're successful, then that's when you start to need to start looking at your funding and your finance really, really, really carefully. You don't want to leave it too late. With some funding applications, you have to wait 6 weeks. With the National Lottery project, it was a 6 week decision. And then I applied again. It was another 6 weeks. So this was 3 months after I found out that I'd got in. So time was ticking on, and to be turned down at the second attempt, um, it was kind of like, okay, I really need to forget about funding and I need to fund this myself now, it was just about possible. But you do have to realize that it could happen. You may not get any funding. And I'm just saying this because it was very tight. So think about that really, really carefully. As soon as you apply, start looking at all the grants that you could apply to and get that kind of started as soon as possible so that if you do get accepted, then you are already ready to apply, because you don't want time to tick on and on and on and on uh, until you find out. I think kind of get prepared as soon as you apply to Collect Open. Do your research. It's really important to do that. I think also if you don't live in London, then you've got to look at transport and accommodation and those extra costs that you might need to kind of make a successful show. So those are extra things that you need to think about. For me, it was accommodation was was okay. It was it was doable, but the transport was kind of getting a bit tricky in delivery. It was great. But think about those things. That's what I wanted to say first of all, because it was a bit of a headache for a while. It was a bit of a headache. Um, Also, I guess because I've done craft fairs and stuff in the past, I was used to talking to people about my work, and this was like a craft fair, but really quite an intense craft fair because you're talking to collectors, you're talking to galleries, you're talking to curators, you're talking to the public as well. You've got to be comfortable about talking about your work to every kind of level of a different type of person. So I think if you're not used to that or you find that difficult, I think you need to kind of practice a little bit with talking very succinctly about what it is that you are exhibiting. I think I found doing that so many times during Collect Open, you're doing it to groups of people, you're doing it to individuals. Just when you're not expecting it, a group will come in and they want you to talk about your work. So you've got like 2 minutes to go, okay, let me get my head round this. I'm just halfway through eating a sandwich, but you kind of got to go for it. Um, so practice, if you do get accepted, kind of practice about talking about your work. Also in the lead up to Collect Open is your social media. So you've got to be quite good at kind of connecting to that Crafts Council machine of the PR. And I think if you've not got an Instagram or website, then um, start thinking about promoting yourself during that time leading up to Collect Open as well. I think that's really important that this is a one-off opportunity. It's like the biggest opportunity that you can get as a maker in this country. It's unprecedented. So you've got to really make the most of it, I think. And it's an amazing opportunity. And I went in with a couple of goals. One in particular was to talk to a particular curator, which he came to visit me at my stall and now in my room, and we've made that hopefully permanent connection with him. I think it's being at Collect, it's where all the important people go. And I say to my students, you've got to go where the people that you want to contact with, you want to be there where they go. They won't come and find you otherwise. You've got to be in that place where all these museums, curators, gallery owners, they will all come to Collect, and they are looking for new, fresh people to find out about. So it was an incredible opportunity, and it's still happening. And I think that thing with Collect Open is that opportunities are still ongoing. There are still things that are happening because of being in Collect Open. Um, and I feel like it kind of keeps giving you stuff um, after you've taken part in it. So I've got galleries interested, I've got curators interested. I even got a guy from a gallery in New York who, although didn't know that I was in Collect Open, I think because you're part of that PR machine with Collect, once you get accepted as a Collect Open participant, it kind of throws your name around social media to a much wider extent than you can do on your own. And I think that's how he found out about me. Um, so I think there are those kind of unexpected um, additions to being Collect Open that may not necessarily be directly connected to being exhibiting in Collect Open, but they kind of push your name around, much further afield than you would be able to by yourself. So I think that's one of the really good things about being part of something which is very highly promoted and advertised. It's a very prestigious thing to be part of. I'm very lucky to been accepted. It pushed my practice to a whole new level. I'm starting to look very much at my work being much more biographical because that's what I proposed for the for my exhibition at Collect Open. It's just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, and I think once you start that ball rolling, then it kind of the opportunities are there to be had. And I think that was a really that's the most exciting bit for me, I think, was it just kind of gives you that little push to really develop what you're doing, kind of be ambitious. It gives you that support and being, I guess, kind of being accepted. It kind of makes you think, okay, well, the Crafts Council think I'm good enough to do this. That's a great, that's a great pat on the back, and it's a great bit of uh, it's a huge encouragement. And I think to get that mentorship and that support has made me think, okay, well, I can really do this. And it's carried on very much on that same kind of role in terms of exhibiting and selling and opportunities that you would not get anywhere else. So I think you've got to be ready for that. And I think, as Caroline was saying earlier on, you've got to think about, is this the right time for me to do this? Because you kind of get on that wheel, that machine, and then who knows what's going to happen? You're going to get galleries and collectors coming to you at Collect Open, and they haven't seen your work before, and so this is what they assume that you do every day. And so you've got to be ready to go, okay, yes, I can make some work for your gallery. I can do this commission. You've got to be at that stage where you are kind of going, yeah, okay, yeah, I can do this. This is good. This is I can do that. It's kind of it's not overwhelming, but it is a kind of like a big wave of potential and opportunities, which is you've got to be kind of ready for it. And meeting the other Collect Open participants was fantastic. You'll get to know them really well over the months that you get together. Um, I guess I don't know what else I was gonna say really. I think it's changed my practice. It's taken that several steps up, which is what I wanted. And I think, as Caroline was saying earlier, you've got to want to step up at this point because this it's what will happen to you. If you want it to happen, then if you feel that this is the right time for you to do this, then absolutely go for it. I think have great images of your previous work. You've got to have a nice, clear proposal so that the people on the panel they completely understand right from the get-go what it is that you want to do and what the idea is about. It can be something personal, it can be something about the materials. As long as they kind of understand and relate to what it is that you're trying to do, um, and you're financially kind of ready for it, it's absolutely amazing. I loved it. It was exhausting. It was absolutely exhausting, but it was fantastic. Um, I don't know what else. What else can I say? Is there anything that,
No, that was great. Thank you so much,
okay?
Chris. Yeah, that was, I'm sure everyone would agree, like super, super helpful. It's always such a yeah, a great insight to hear from someone who's been through it all, and to hear kind of what you got out of it as well, and the expected and the unexpected. So yeah, thank you. And yeah, if I think we're ready to start the kind of open Q&A, so we can go through, I mean, I think there's a question in there already for you, Chris, if we
Yeah,
want to start with that one, and then we can make sure that we've captured them all. I'm just going to stop sharing, and if people wanted to raise hands or just to carry on putting them in the chat, that's absolutely fine. So someone's asked how many pieces you ended up presenting at Collect, and I suppose
yeah.
to know if that changed from your initial idea. Um,
It did. Yes. Do you know, I was going to do originally six, and for some reason I only did five. But I told Caroline straight away when I kind of made that decision. I think it was a time management thing for me, and the presentation changed a little bit as well. I was going to have these heads. I was going to have all kind of uh, three-dimensional ceramic heads on an individual plinth, and then when it came to it, they became more abstract. They were still about the people that I was portraying, but they became slightly more abstract, and they kind of ended up on a long table, which I discussed with Caroline through the process, and it just seemed to make a lot more sense. And when it came to the actual setting up of the piece, it worked. And I think kind of talking to Caroline about the presentation of it and how it would look in the room itself, it made a lot more sense. So it can change. I think as my concept remained the same, the actual kind of the idea of um, the conversation between these people stayed the same, but the presentation slightly altered. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That's
Okay.
really cool. So just another question that's in, and you're right as well about kind of it's really hard to know exactly what your work will look like in the space because also the space allocation doesn't happen straight away either. So just to kind of go over and maybe I'll talk a little bit about the timeline, which is also in relation to one of the other questions that we've got in the chat. So if you're accepted, do we get help for producing promotional materials? So essentially, what would happen if you were successful is you get a one-to-one with the lovely Caroline, who can kind of advise you on all elements really of delivering your project. So that can involve kind of advice on marketing and promotional material. So yeah, that's obviously the support from Caroline is part of what we provide over the months in the lead up to the fair. So she's there to help you with all sorts, including kind of like how you'd like to present. But in terms of the presentation as well, so just to kind of summarize, there is a timeline in the application guidance. So after you're accepted, which will be in July, we'll get in touch with a contract and to kind of confirm that you'd like to take up your space, your place in the programme. We hold an induction meeting in September, which will be a chance to meet everyone who's been accepted. So, like Chris was saying, you get to know everyone else who's on the programme, and it's a really nice kind of community that you'll form. The induction is also a chance for us to kind of just for you to meet us and for us to meet you and for us to kind of go over what to expect over the coming months in the run up. So there'll be lots more information shared at that point. But one thing that is a kind of another key moment is the site visit. So we will have worked internally within the Collect team to kind of position where the projects will be in the fair. And then there's an opportunity to show you at Somerset House. We'll arrange a time for us to all go down together and you'll see which space you've got within the fair. So Chris, you were sharing a room with three other artists.
Yeah.
So likely going to be a similar thing where there are shared rooms. And as I'm sure you found, it kind of works quite well in terms of you'll support each other and there's a
Yeah.
nice, yeah, kind of environment. And obviously we kind of place the projects with kind of curation in mind of like what works like complementary but not too similar, and that's all kind of taken into account. So there's a chance for you to kind of see what your space will look like and then kind of start the planning process of like, right, now exactly how will it be displayed? We've got an ops team, as we say, to kind of help with any of those kind of perhaps more challenging things to do with like hanging solutions and things like that. So there's lots of support available from that perspective. So I won't go any more detail in that unless people have got more questions. I can just see one that's popped up. So in terms of just supplying the display materials such as plinths or fixings, yes, you would need to supply those yourself. So we provide the space and the support from the team, but we don't provide kind of the display materials or anything like that. What we can offer is technicians who can help you during the installation period. So part of what's released later in the year is a full kind of exhibitor manual, and that's got lots of information about kind of like how to set up the fair and to prepare. And it's got a timeline of, how long your install period is for. But it's basically you get about 16 hours over 2 days, one very long day and one morning before you open. So depending on the nature of your project, you might need assistance. So we actually offer 2 hours of technician time for free for all Collect Open participants. And anything beyond that is charged for, but 2 hours tends to be quite a good amount. So make use of that. And you can also have people, we don't expect you to do the whole week, including the install on your own. So you can have people come in and help you if you've got kind of people that you're happy to work with on, as part of a team, really. And especially during the week, like Chris says, it's very busy and people want to talk to you. So you are the important person to be at your stand, but you are also human. So you will need to take breaks. So you can have people kind of sub in for you. And I think it's helpful as well in those shared rooms, isn't it, Chris? I don't know if you found
Yeah,
this. Get to know each other's work. So if someone's gone off on a break, then you can kind of step in and help with other people in
completely.
terms of like fielding questions from visitors.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went on a bit of a tangent, but hopefully that's helpful. Um, so I'm just scrolling back and we will make sure that we catch everyone. So sorry if it's not in a particular order. So when we would require images of final work. So the main imagery we require kind of close to the fair is for your catalogue page, but you don't necessarily need to have the whole piece finished because we will ask for that image in December. And we're very well aware that a lot of people might be making right up until February. So not to worry if you haven't kind of had time to complete and arrange a big photo shoot. I actually shared Chris's image, which was used for the catalogue, which is a really great one. And it was a detail shot of the work. So it's just essentially for the catalogue, it needs to be something that people are going to remember you by. So if they're flicking through, if you think about, a visitor who's going around the fair, they've seen hundreds and hundreds of pieces and they're kind of trying to find out, oh, who was that person that I spoke to? They need something that's going to jolt their memory. So it doesn't need to be a big kind of like this is the work that they saw. It just needs to be something representative. But yeah, images in general is great to get as many as you can to us because as Chris said, we've got a whole kind of marketing team and a PR team who are kind of pushing a lot of kind of the narratives from the fair and the work from the fair. So if we've got imagery to aid with that, then that's really helpful. So good, strong images. And I shared a few of them in the presentation just now. The work in process images of Chris, you making the work, those kinds of things. It can be a broad kind of spectrum of the type of imagery or videos that you submit. And our marketing team will get in touch with you directly as well if they're putting together a specific series or kind of like a curated reels, then they'll kind of ask you for kind of whatever they've decided to work on as an angle this year. They'll say, can you give us content like this? So you'll be in touch with them as well. So sorry, I'm aware I'm doing a lot of talking, so don't worry if you want to field questions, Caroline, feel free.
There was one question for Chris about what was your timeline for the fair, Chris?
Yeah, I saw that one. So I think as you mentioned earlier, Caroline, it's kind of like as soon as you've been accepted, you kind of have to work backwards, especially with ceramics, because obviously things take a long time to dry and to fire. So there is a long process of making. So I worked backwards from the time that I knew that I had to deliver the work. I did a timetable and I wrote it in my diary that this needs to be finished by this week, that needs to be finished by that week. And in the meantime, you're doing your Instagram posts, regular Instagrams, you're taking some videos, you're taking some photos. So I think as soon as you know from the day that you've got the acceptance email, is to kind of go, right, I've got this amount of time now, work backwards to where I am now and kind of work out how roughly how long each piece is going to take, have a bit of a contingency just in case something goes wrong, which did happen. And especially if you're applying for a grant, I would say that obviously when you're applying for a grant, you can't have started the work on the project before you find out your decision. So those kinds of things you need to be aware of if you're applying for a grant, they don't want you to have started before the decision is given to you. So those are the kinds of things that you need to be aware of when you start, when you've been accepted, is kind of get everything prepared for that. But have a diary up until the beginning of the show and work backwards from that, and that will tell you how long you've got. Yeah, and how much work you need to do. That was really useful. In my diary, I would turn over to the next week and I would see that I've needed to have finished, piece two by, whenever. So it meant that I needed to get a bit of a move on. Um, so writing it all down for me was the clearest way for me to do it. Uh, yeah, it's kind of a bit of a blur now, but that was very important to do that planning. So,
Great, thank you. I think we've got less than a minute, so I don't want to start answering another question. Sorry, this will be the last time we need to do it, but if everyone can just rejoin the same link again, and then we'll pick up from there. So yeah, apologies again, but just use the same link, it will let you back in. Yeah, we just had a bit of a tech failure today, unfortunately.
Yeah, and please think of more questions to come back with. Yeah, so yeah, any question. Thank you.
Great. Recording anyway. And there might be a few more to join. Yeah, so just give it a few more seconds actually. See the chat box as well.
Useful for me to repeat the questions back to you.
Yeah, so I actually took photos. So we had one that was asking how many applications do we get on average? So over the last few years, I would say between 50 and 60 is what you've put as well. So yeah, it does tend to be around that number. Obviously, it could be different each year. But yeah, it does make it quite a lot to drill down for the panel. So it's not always an easy decision. So don't be too disheartened if you're not successful. There's some strong kind of competition. So yeah, that's on average. Um, and then there was one regarding the bursary. So in terms of eligibility criteria for the bursary, yeah, mixed heritage artists are still eligible. Apologies, the form's not terribly clear because it kind of identifies people in specific categories. So I can have another look at the form. But yeah, essentially, if you apply to more than one heritage, then that's absolutely fine. Um,
The other one was around crediting sponsors if you get material.
Sponsors, yes, that one I didn't take a photo of, I do remember. So yeah, how it works in terms of the signage at the fair is that we do actually provide signage for Collect Open artists at the fair. So you'll kind of get Collect branded signage, which is more than we provide to the galleries actually. But it will be essentially what you submit to us for your catalogue information. So we'll gather it from you in December. Um, and it will be kind of a statement about your work. It will be kind of see your details like your Instagram, things like that. If you have received funding, there'll be an option. So it's another form basically on the portal. So there'll be an option to upload kind of sponsor logos or kind of partner logos, whoever you'd like to be able to be credited, and then that can appear on your catalog page, your website page, and your signage on site at the fair, which is all provided by Collect. So yes, you might have different agreements where you actually don't need them credited in all three places. So you can just let us know if that's the case, or you might get quite late sponsorship come in like late January, in which case it might not be possible for us to, it probably wouldn't be possible for us to include that in the catalogue, but website is always more straightforward to amend. So do just keep in touch if there's crediting that you'd like to be able to happen. Then we'll obviously try and facilitate, but the earlier the better, because then we can just make sure it appears everywhere that it needs to. So yeah, that is possible.
There was another question around liability, artist liability for any stand build costs if there was an enclosed installation.
So it's a requirement of your contract that you sign that you've got to have a public liability insurance in place. I don't know if that's the kind of same kind of thing that might be referred to here. So the PLI value does need to be 10 million, which is fairly high. But unfortunately, it's something that we can't amend because it's a venue requirement. So it's actually set by Somerset House. That they require kind of every exhibitor to have that in place. So in case of kind of damages or anything like that, it's a kind of cover. There is different places that I think we've signposted people before to kind of get that level of PLI cover. I think it's the AN, was it the Artist Network, provide kind of like a fairly reasonable kind of package that I know I've seen people use before.
It
Obviously,
was
it's
also
kind of we can't advise officially who to go to and who not to, but we can help point you towards places. Yeah.
it was also the costs. Who pays for stand builds?
Oh, sorry. So it wasn't about insurance or.
I'm not. It's good that we're answering both.
Yeah, let's cover all options, and then obviously if anything's not clear, please feel free to pop more questions in the chat. So in terms of who pays for stand build, so yeah, so essentially what we're providing is the space. But if you need display equipment, so like plinths and things like that, then you'll need to provide that yourself. If you need things built on your stand in order to kind of facilitate the work to be shown. So I spoke earlier a little bit about hanging. Sometimes to be able to hang, like a beam might need to be installed, kind of like a cross cladding or something like that. So those kinds of costs do tend to be needed to be covered by yourselves. But we obviously don't want kind of costs to be it's something that we'll work out in conversation. It kind of it's very much it's hard to give a straightforward answer because it's dependent on the needs of the work and the solutions that we're able to offer. So sometimes it might be like a shared cost between Collect and yourselves, but it's really hard to kind of know until we know the detail of what's being arranged. So that is something that will just be in conversation with you, in the planning process, but there won't be any unexpected fees. We'll be very transparent about kind of what we can do and what's possible in terms of the display. So hopefully that helps. Painting as well. Some people, sorry, it just came to mind. Some people like to have their walls painted, and that would be an extra cost that you'd need to cover if you did choose to do that. So someone's asked if there's anyone from last year who succeeded in securing funding. So Caroline, you might know more about an average number of how many people are successful if they choose to go that route.
I don't know a specific average number, but yes, Arts Council is the most popular, and both project grant and developing your creative practice grant. As Chris has already said, people have secured money through um, crowdfunding campaigns, and some people have secured money when they're overseas artists. So this is not just an opportunity for UK-based artists. We do have overseas exhibitors, and they've secured grant funding associated with that. I'm trying to think about other specific funders at the top of my head without looking back at uh, information. I know that some people have secured quite a bit of income in kind through materials. I'm going to have a quick scoot as well.
Should we check if we missed any other questions in the previous chat? Because I took photos. But if you feel like we've missed your question, please do pop it in the chat again. I think we've gone through most of them so far. Yeah, I think we've captured them all so far, but please do pipe up or yeah, draw our attention if there's something that we've missed or there's something that you're still curious about. As I say, we hope that the application guidance document is quite comprehensive. So there might be things that you think of later. So hopefully you can find the answer in there, but if not, obviously you can also always get in touch with us over email if you've got something that comes up later on.
Also on the subject of funding, there are in the guidelines, there are some recommendations of medium specific funders within that. So have a look.
So is it preferable to already have experience? That's not kind of what's in mind when the panel selects people, I would say, is it Caroline? I mean, you might find it like you're more geared up for being at the fair if you've had the experience. But we do try and like really support you in that and to help. And Caroline, you run a kind of a few sessions beforehand. So even if it is like a totally brand new experience, which it has often been for previous Collect Open participants, a lot of the time it's been their first experience kind of exhibiting at all.
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
yeah,
sometimes it's really a varied kind of background, isn't it? So, but Caroline, I
yeah.
don't know if you want to add more to that.
Yeah, we've had people that have never done a show before, so have only exhibited with galleries or within research shows, so never done a fair where they've physically had to have been present. So that's my role, to make sure that you are ready for the opportunity to help you through that. Definitely.
Great. So someone's asked the price range of work. So the fair does have a minimum price point. So, and this is overall for galleries and Collect Open. So we don't expect there to be much work below the value of £1,000. But the absolute minimum price point is 500. For galleries, what that means is we kind of wouldn't expect certain percentages of their work to be on the lower end. But yeah, for Collect Open, all the kind of time and energy that's gone into your work alone, I think by the nature of it, yeah, the price point would be expected to be over 1,000. So yeah, there is a minimum price point overall, though. It's probably hidden in the T's and C's somewhere, which I appreciate is a bit of a long document, but it is worth having a look over that if you are applying. Just have a quick read just to make sure that you're kind of yeah, understanding the kind of wider terms and conditions of the fair. Um, for the
All right.
marketing
Yeah.
plan. Oh, sorry, did you want to go, Caroline?
I was just going to say, I think it's all just down to relevance when it comes to marketing plan. So if you think it's relevant to have a printed catalogue of your work, or to produce an essay, or to get a video done, or things like that, then put it in there. But it's down to relevance and how you've really thought about the international audience as growing your connections, your mailing list to grow you as a creative business. So that's why we're looking at a marketing plan, rather than saying it's sort of sending out invites and things. It's down to relevance. I hope that answers the question. Is there anything else from anybody? Or Chris, is there anything you wanted to add? I see that you're back with us. I think, yeah.
Um, I put my well, you want to see me upside down. Yeah. I kind of think, yeah, I mean, I guess if you're asking the kind of questions now, I guess maybe it means that you're ready. And I think it is about readiness. Um, because it can change everything. It can really change your practice, your making career, and the opportunities that it gives you are fantastic, and the support that you get during the sorry, it's my cat is just decided to jump on. The support that you get is fantastic. So it's not just exhibiting at the fair. You get to be part of the kind of crafts council team really, and I think that really helps, and it helps for long after the fair is finished. So if you're ready for it and you've got a great idea and you feel like doing it, then absolutely go for it. It's been career changing for me already, and there are things that hopefully will happen in the next few months, which will kind of just keep pushing that on and on. So um, yeah, if you think about it, go for it. It's fantastic.
That's very good advice. Have the confidence, believe
Yes.
in yourselves.
Yeah, I feel that's rather a
Great.
nice thing to say. Thank Chris.
And was there any final thoughts you had, Caroline? I think we're quite on time actually with what we were aiming to cover in the agenda. But is there any kind of final thoughts you'd like to just as advice? Um,
I
I think
just
Chris
want to
summed it up quite well.
reiterate, Chris, give yourself permission to fly.
Good. Nice.
Well, thanks everyone for joining. Like I say, if it's never too late for questions, so if you've got something that comes to mind, please just get in touch. And yeah, thank you for bearing with us with the tech issues. I appreciate it wasn't ideal, and hopefully we've not lost too many people over the process, but I will share the recording as well and try and consolidate all those questions, so that people are kind of, yeah, hopefully getting something useful out of it. But yeah, thank you so much for joining and good luck in your applications. And yeah, get in touch if there's anything else that's helpful, and maybe see you soon. Great. Thank you, Chris. Thank you,
Thank
Caroline.
you. Good luck, everyone. See you next year.
Bye.